we're back, remembering Dynasty, bums, and a whole lot more with Peter Golenbock. I'm Ralph Tyko. How are you, Peter?
Fine, thank you, Ralph. How are you?
Good. We're kind of expecting Lenny Randall to call this evening from Italy. And
all right.
Yeah, I hope he does because he's an old friend of yours, and you'll get to renew acquaintances. And he's been on my guest on my show, and he's absolutely a charming guy. He's becoming the international expert and on young talent overseas. He's got academies over there. He's developing guys. He just introduced me to a fellow tonight who has become a Facebook friend, and a fellow by the name of Marcus, and I'm just I blank on his last name. Lenny thinks he's the next coming of Cespedes combined with Pugh. He's 23 years old. He's 6'3", built like a brick shithouse, if you will. And
well, I hope Lenny's representing him. I hope he's right.
Yes. So we'll talk to Lenny about that one, and if he calls in. In the meantime, I have a myriad of questions on a book that you wrote on the St. Louis Cardinals, and if I'm not mistaken, the St. Louis Browns were, it was both the Cardinals and Browns. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, absolutely, the Cardinals and the Browns, sure.
All right, and the
Cardinals were a very sort of straight-laced ball club, led by Stan Musial, and Branch Rickey is the fellow who made the Cardinals great for the first time, and Rickey was just probably the most important baseball figure of all the non-players. He just was so important. He not only built the St. Louis Cardinals, he then went and built the Brooklyn Dodgers, and he brought Jackie Robinson into baseball. And then he went to the Pirates, where he stole Roberto Clemente from his Brooklyn Dodgers and took him with him to the Pirates. And Clemente, of course, was the mainstay of the 1961 Pittsburgh Pirate National League champions. And then after
1960,
that,
if I may correct you.
That's correct, 60 champions, National League champions. And then after that, what people don't realize was that Rickey was instrumental in starting the Continental League. And what was absolutely fascinating and important about the Continental League was that it challenged Major League Baseball in a big, big way, because Rickey, of course, was a very important personage.
Right.
And as a result, rather than there be a Continental League, what you ended up having was 4 of the Continental League teams. Was the Mets, the Colt 45s.
Yes.
Yeah, Houston Colt 45s. And the other 2, I believe, were, the American League teams. The Angels and the Minnesota Twins, I think, were the 4th. 4 teams.
Right, well, Minnesota moved from Washington, and
that's
the
right.
new expansion team was to replace the Washington Senators. They were the second Washington Senators. Since then, now we have
a third. Now we have the Washington Nationals. Yes.
Right.
But I mean, people do not realize that Branch Rickey was the fellow behind all of that.
And 2 more things. First of all, he invented the farm system when he was still with the St. Louis Browns.
Yes, he did. The Browns, unfortunately, the owner of the Browns, unfortunately, didn't recognize what an important personage he had. Rickey actually started as a manager of the Browns. And he was not a very good manager because he was very punctilious. He was a real dot the I, cross the T's kind of guy, and he drove his players absolutely crazy. And so when he went from the Browns to the Cardinals, the owner of the Cardinals was smart enough to make him the general manager, where he took his farm system concepts, and he was battling Kennesaw Mountain Landis all the way. Landis didn't want him doing it. But Rickey was the sort of fellow who was not to be denied, and he ended up, successful in that battle with Landis, and the Cardinals ended up with a very, very powerful team, especially in the 40s.
Right, the Gas House Gang and what have you.
Well, the Gas House Gang was 1934, but the power of the Cardinals was, for the most part, the Musial, that Musial group in the 40s.
Well, with Slaughter and those guys.
Yes. Slaughter and those guys.
Who was
absolutely.
really quite a National League player. He
was a star. He was a star. No two ways about it.
He was right on the borderline of being a Hall of Famer, and
he's in the Hall of Fame.
Became one.
He
eventually became one.
Yeah.
Leads us to the question of there are other deserving folks, Gil Hodges among them.
I don't understand, quite frankly, between you and me, what the hell has ever gone on between Hodges and the rest of the world. I mean, the guy won championship with the Mets as manager. Not only that, but playing with the Dodgers, he won National League championships 1947, 1949, 1952, 1953, 1955, 1956. What do they want from the guy?
When he retired, he owned the record for most home runs by a right-handed hitter in the National League.
More so than the great Pittsburgh hitter who became the Mets, Ralph Kiner. More so than Kiner.
Right.
Hard to believe.
Kiner.
Really?
He's either tied with Kiner or he surpassed his record.
See, I think he had 369. I think Kiner had more than that. But again, it's just off the top of my head.
Okay.
I don't have it in front of me.
I don't have that either. But I think when he retired, I think I just read that the other day. So I'll stand by that. And I've been corrected many, many times. So
I just don't understand it. I don't. I mean, for a long, long time, you had your Veterans Committee. What were these guys thinking? Was it that the Dodgers have too many Hall of Famers? I mean, look at the Yankees. The Yankees have a slew of them picked by other Yankees. You would have thought somebody would have picked Gil Hodges.
See, I would have thought that because if a player is for a decade the best first baseman, as an example, in the league for a decade or more, that automatically would pick him. Now, Musial played a little first base over the years.
Musial was Musial. Musial had a spectacular batting average. He hit a ton of home runs. He was clearly the leader of the St. Louis Cardinals for 20 years.
Right.
But Musial was
other than him, who was? I mean, they had some excellent first basemen in the National League.
You had Johnny Mize at first base for the Giants. You had people.
He's a Hall of Famer.
But that's not the point. The point is Gil Hodges. Gil Hodges not only was a great baseball player, but he was a great man. And you would have thought that it would have counted for something. And when I did my Mets book and I interviewed the fellows who played under Hodges, they adored him. He was tough as nails. He set standards. They followed his standards to a T. They admired him. They respected him. They thought he was a marvelous manager, and he took them to a championship.
What more can you do? And not only that, he took a team that not only didn't believe in themselves, it was a first-time team. They had finished 8th the year before. They were eventually going to jail, but very weak-hitting team. No one expected it but Gil Hodges, and he sold the rest of his team on that. And I'm sure to a man they'll say they played over their head. And
of course, you also had the collapse of the Cubs, which was a big help as well. Remember the Cubs had a big lead,
Koosman and they had some head-to-head games that the Mets helped contribute to their collapse. And there's a lot of irony there. DeRocher being the manager of the Cubs, not chosen by the Mets, just a whole bunch of stuff that when the Mets were formed, they took the Casey Stengel route. And
well, who would you have taken?
Who would I have taken? I probably would have
taken
Alvin Dark. I probably would have tried to get Alvin Dark.
Alvin Dark was a racist. Give me a break.
I know. I know that. But
know that you would have taken him anyway.
We're looking back, knowing how much of a racist he was, with the information that was available at that time.
It was available. All you had to do was ask.
Well,
everybody knew he was a racist. He treated blacks terribly.
Yeah,
terribly,
and Latins as well. So he was
even worse.
Yeah,
no respect for these people. It was bizarre.
I remember him trying to tear down Cepeda's numbers. He had like 125 RBIs, had 30 home runs, and Dark had this way of just it's that Southern way of putting things a wink and a nod kind of way that's absolutely disgusting. Yes, so that wouldn't have been a good choice, I'm sure.
No,
who would have I taken? I guess looking back, the Mets.
Hey, let me ask you
absolutely the right person.
What in the world do you have? What do you have against Casey, for crying out loud? He was the
nothing.
guy.
Nothing. They took the wrong person. I don't think he was in a position to make them winners, but they weren't going to be winners.
In a position to be winners? That was the worst draft of a team that you could ever imagine. Winners. Are you kidding me? Winners.
But even
they had the worst team,
the worst.
But
the names, and they all went bad. Who looked? Hodges was one. Gus Bell, Richie Ashburn, Thomas, Neal. Who knew Neal would be so bad? He was Rookie of the Year in 1959. Turns out he had a horrible drinking problem. He was a horrible ball player with the Mets. But who knew that? Who knew that? Who knew that Throneberry, who was a great Yankee prospect at one time, could be that inept in the field?
Well, the Yankees did. That's why they let him go.
Yeah, that's true. They did know. But they, the first draft the first guy they drafted was Hobie Landreth. So
Hobie Landreth, yes.
Yeah.
Hobie Landreth.
Okay.
You're right. He was. You know why? Because if they hadn't drafted Hobie Landreth, said Casey Stengel, there would be a hell of a lot of passed balls.
You got to have a catcher.
That's right.
And he did. He made the team into something that transcended baseball. They were the Amazons.
Heavens, yes. Casey Stengel. I named my son after Casey Stengel, for crying out loud. That's how much I thought of him. I thought
Did
the
you
world
call him Casey or Charles Dillon?
He was going to be Charles Dillon, and then he ended up being Charles Elliott for T.S. Eliot instead.
Oh, okay. That's a beautiful choice. That's
nice choice.
That's kind of nice.
Yep.
So tell me, how did Branch Rickey, the pious man that he was, get along in a culture that at that time, probably no different than the culture it is today, if you look at it, it must have been very difficult for him to relate to players, both as a manager, he was a player himself, he was a catcher himself, coming up with his.
He didn't have problems relating to these people at all.
Well, he didn't play games on he didn't attend games on Sunday.
Yeah, so what? So what?
Okay. Well,
it's mostly nonsense. I mean, that was his religious belief at the time, and what they used to say to him, yes, he didn't attend games on Sunday, but sure as shooting, he made sure to collect the attendance money on Sunday, which is true. He did. He absolutely did.
Okay.
So no, the players and he had no problems communicating with each other. None whatsoever. I mean, you saw Robinson coming into the league and how successful he was, and he was successful in a large part because of Rickey and the way Rickey set the whole thing up.
No question.
Sheer
could
genius.
Could not have gone down without.
Genius. No, not at all.
And the one other thing I want to mention, when the Continental League merged or led to expansion, he was hired as a consultant who was credited with helping rebuild that Cardinal team that won in '64. He gets a lot of credit for that. So over a career, it's like 5, besides bringing Jackie in, inventing the farm system itself, building Pittsburgh, building St. Louis the first time, discovering George Sisler with St. Louis.
That's how he started, right.
That's how he started.
Who was the Hall of People don't understand. George Sisler was this Hall of Fame first baseman who for 3 or 4 years hit over 400. The guy was spectacular, absolutely spectacular.
Right.
For a long while until Gehrig came, Sisler was seen as the greatest first baseman of baseball history.
Yeah. How does Fox rank up among those guys?
Jimmy Fox?
Yeah. He
ranks very high. He's right up there. He had 58 home runs in one season, which was astounding.
Right.
I mean, the guy was tremendous. Last night I had the wonderful opportunity to watch League of Their Own, which is so fabulous.
Yes.
And Tom Hanks was actually playing Jimmy Fox.
Yes,
Fox was the manager. Fox had been hired by that league to manage. And what a wonderful, wonderful movie that is.
That is beautiful. That really brings a tear for a number of reasons.
Sure does. Does.
There are 2 women playing minor league baseball, organized ball in the minors now.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, just as a point of reference. So
okay.
I wonder if someday I'm sure there will be some great woman that breaks that barrier as well.
Not out of the question. Difficult.
Not at all.
Not out of the question.
Not at all. And one thing about baseball, you don't have to be a behemoth. You don't have to be 6'5". Just normal size will do at times. Although these pitches
Though. I am telling you what. When I was a kid, Nolan Ryan threw the ball 95 miles an hour, and we were amazed. We were amazed that a pitcher could throw the ball 95 miles an hour. And now you go to the ball game, and there's not a pitcher who doesn't throw the ball 90 miles an hour. I mean, that's just, and in fact, what you end up seeing very often are these relief pitchers who come in and throw 98, 99 miles an hour. And I don't mean just a couple of them. I mean, there are a bunch
Chapman's over 100.
Without a doubt. He's over 100. He's certainly one of them. That's so. Yep.
But look what we're getting in arm injuries. Look what we're getting in arm injuries.
No, you do.
Wonder how much of that is overbuilding up, putting pressure on tendons and ligaments.
It's the trade-off. It's the trade-off.
Right.
You're trading the possibility of injury for speed. I mean, I think
it's
another reason. What?
You know what I love, Pete? You're right about that. But you know what I love is the fan's mind. Well, he's getting Tommy John. He'll be back next year.
That's true.
It's like treating the player like a piece of meat. People have no idea what it takes to rehab from the pain, the psychological pain. You go under the knife, all of those things, and you go, well, he'll be back next year. He'll be okay. It takes 12 months.
True. When a player goes on the DL, he's going to be back in August 1st. Again, nobody knows what he's doing to get back onto the field. That's never been part of the game. You know, it's the thing is a player gets hurt, and it's like, you know, oh damn.
Yeah, but the
and now they're dropping like flies. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So many people.
Harvey is a good example with the Mets.
Yeah.
And what I don't like is the transparency. He was struggling for a long time. They had to know that part of it was physical.
I'm sure they did, but ball players don't like going on the DL. They don't like stepping down. I mean, they were waiting for Harvey to say, "Hey, folks, you know, it's time to pack it up." And until he said that, they were going to let him continue to pitch. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but in the meantime, you wonder if, for the sake of the team, if he could say, "I'm hurting now. Let me go rehab a little bit." Give the team some notice, and I don't know.
Yeah, but that's not the macho way of doing things. You go out there and you play until you physically can't. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, and the teams, you know, the teams don't want you doing that, but you know, a guy says to himself, "Well, I go on the DL and somebody else takes my job. You know, that could be the end of my career." And if you're making $10 million a year,
play when you're hurt makes it worse, and that could be the end of your career.
Mickey Mantle played, 15 years hurt. Some people play hurt. That's just the way it is. You're hurt. Well, live with it. That's just
all right.
That's the game.
All right. Now tell me how your Tampa Rays are doing.
We are the worst team in baseball. We are the worst Tampa Bay Rays that we have ever been, ever. We are 2-22. We were 31-32, and now I think we're 33-55, something like that. I mean, it's really unbelievable. It is, And
you keep calling for the manager's head. Has that been talking in Tampa about that?
Everybody has an opinion. I just happen to think
you're not campaigning for it.
No, I'm not campaigning for it. I just think he's the worst manager I've ever seen. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Aside from that,
well,
other than the fact that I don't have a sneaky suspicion he doesn't have the slightest idea what the hell he's doing. Aside from that.
Aside from that, he'll be great.
Yeah, right.
Anybody coming up that you want to talk about that you're looking as a future?
Anybody coming up? You're talking about the Rays organization?
Yeah.
The Rays haven't had a decent person coming up since Longoria, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They do not have a knack. They do not have a knack of finding ball players in the minor leagues. They don't. The only decent ball players they've had are the ones they've gotten in trades. I can't imagine a less successful minor league contingent. It's really almost bizarre that you would think that even at the roll of the dice you could find somebody who would make it, but no, nothing.
No. Now, here's my final question of the evening. When the Yankees come to town, and
Yankees do come to town.
You're on the way to a ball game?
Yeah.
Who do you really secretly way down deep root for?
Well, there's no secret. I live in St. Petersburg, Florida. There's no secret. I've lived here since 1989. Who do you think I'm rooting for? It takes me 6 minutes to get from my house to the ballpark. 6.
But nobody painted a picture with you, the Mick, and Roger Maris, and you play in left field. You sitting, right?
Well, but the thing is, when I moved here, there was no sense that we would ever have Major League Baseball. The thought of that was ridiculous. This is just it's absurd. But we have it. We have it. And so a close friend of mine who's another professor, we go to the games. We started out in 1998. Again, they were the worst. We had an owner by the name of Namoli. And he was such a cheapskate. he was one of those guys who figured out that if you get all really cheap players, that you can make a fortune. And he did. He made a fortune with the worst team in baseball year after year after year. And that's what he did. That's the way he did it. And we put up with him, and then the new guys came in, Sternberg, who's now the owner, and Matt Silverman, who's now the general manager. And we actually, in 4 years, went to the playoffs. Or 3 years. 3 years we went to the playoffs. And it was exhilarating. Right. It was wonderful. It really was. And now, unfortunately, because they're a cheap shit outfit, we're back in the toilet again. And the fans,
Was Piazza's father involved with the ownership in Tampa for a while?
Yeah, for a while, but he never ended up with a piece of the team.
Okay.
He never ended up with a piece of the team. But, now everybody's calling for everybody's heads. I mean, it's really interesting. They want Silverman's head because he traded away Will Myers, who's now an all-star for the San Diego Padres. He traded away Ben Zobrist, who's now an all-star for the Chicago Cubs.
He is so good. He is so versatile and so good. And
people love old Benny. They really do. He drove me crazy because he had a wife, and his wife had this horrendous song that they would always play whenever he came up to bat.
She'd be on it, singing it?
Yeah, she'd be singing it, and it was just awful. And it used to just absolutely flat out drive me crazy. Now that
he's the guy
gone,
the Mets didn't sign, and he always beats the Mets. And the guy the Mets traded away was Murphy, and this guy is having an incredible year and killing the Mets 3 times a month.
Right. I mean, what's interesting about this game, and I've talked to various and sundry general managers, is that anytime you make a trade, you have no idea how it's going to turn out. You just don't know. I mean, you can hope, but you don't know. And unfortunately, this time around, after making the trades that they made, the Rays in the last month and a half have 2 victories and 23 losses. I mean, that's worthy of the original Mets. That's how horrible that is.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, it's just awful. But the funny thing about all of it is that we don't have bad players. They're not bad. We just have a shortstop. We got this guy Miller. Unfortunately, Miller has a range of about a foot to either side. Seattle had him last year, and they decided to put him into center field last year. And the Rays, in their wisdom, decided, he's not that bad. Plus, he hits better than the guy we had. And sure as shooting, old Miller, Brad Miller, has hit 14 home runs. But he's allowed 40 runs because he can't catch a ground ball to either his left or to his right. It's just unbelievable. And
when the Mets were struggling a few years ago, they needed a shortstop. He was one of the guys that I was high on. So that shows you.
Wrong guy. And we have a catcher by the name of Conger. Okay? Conger may be the worst hitting catcher in the history of the game of baseball. And that's saying something because we had Jose Molina last year, who was truly the worst hitter in the game of baseball. So we've gone from the worst hitter in the game of baseball to a guy who's even worse. And it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. They can't literally find somebody better than a guy who can't hit, field, or throw. And so the fans are just up in arms. Myself, I root for the team because I'll root for the team because I'm happy that they're here.
Right.
I'm happy that I'm so what's the right word? Grateful.
That's what kept me going as an original Met fan.
Hell yeah. Sure.
10 years old, my team comes back. It's National League. It's I'm at the Polo Grounds again.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I love it.
Hell yeah. Think of all the teams, of all the towns. Think of all the towns that don't have Major League Baseball. And there's a score of them. St. Petersburg, Florida. St. Petersburg, Florida, our little, wonderful little town, has Major League Baseball. And so how upset can I be? I can't be that upset.
And that's part of it's the loyalty of a fan that you
hell
with.
Yes.
Sure. What are you going to do? Play out your option? You really don't have a choice.
No, you really don't have a choice. So, you hope, maybe the owner will sell out to somebody who knows what they're doing, or, maybe they'll, somehow turn it around in some way that I can't, personally imagine.
Or hire a general manager or a president of baseball operations.
Well, the problem is that Matt Silverman is Sternberg's best friend. His other best friend is now running the Dodgers. He went off to the Dodgers, signed a 5-year deal at $5 million a year. This guy, the GM of the Dodgers, and we had Joe Madden, who was this marvelous manager, and he ran off and he signed again a 5-year, $5 million deal with the Cubs.
Yeah.
So, nobody's signing a $5 million deal with the Rays. That's just not going to happen.
All right, Peter. Thank you, sir. As usual.
You're welcome.
It's terrific.
Okay.
All
right. Have a good week. I'll talk to you.
I'm loving it. You too. And fans out there, keep on keeping on. And we'll
About it out. All right. Take care.
Well.
Bye-bye.